All right, let's jump right in. This conversation started back in episode 200 and continued on episode 217. Me and my brother Jared's top 50 favorite bands of all time. Yes, yesterday I actually had to just shut the two files down because coming up with these lists actually, it's just crazy because I can listen to my top 10 albums, for instance, and I can be playing one of them and I'm like, oh man, that should be way higher than 10. But then I'll play another one, like a different, and it really is. I think once you get to like the top 10, I think my top 2 albums.
You mean bands, right?
Yeah, bands. Like probably my top 5 were super clear, but then it just kind of gets to it's kind of just like I don't know where to place them, but it's definitely an accurate snapshot.
Yeah, for sure. I think this entire list is nothing really more than a snapshot, except I do agree with you. I think my top 5, maybe top 10 is pretty crystal clear, but then 10 to 30 is just a snapshot for sure. Yeah.
So how you been doing, man? Tell our listeners.
Yeah, I'm doing well. I'm definitely in distance learning mode, so I'm Zooming every single day. Mondays is kind of my rough day because I'm teaching all 5 of my classes, but we're only doing like 20-minute sessions, so it's not terrible. But then Monday through Friday, it's only 2 or 3 classes, 30-minute sessions, a little bit more laid back. But we're doing online, like virtual office hours. We're doing, distance learning tests. So we're learning new technologies. We're adapting pretty well, I think.
So when you have all these kids on a Zoom call, do you monitor their behavior? Like, do you say, hey, please pay attention or anything like that?
And the reason why, I guess it's different for me because I'm a math teacher, I'm using the built-in Zoom whiteboard. And so when I pull up the whiteboard, I can only see one student at a time.
That's probably good, actually. If I were in your shoes, I wouldn't want to see. I would just be like, you know what? I'm going to teach, and if they're listening, they're listening. If they're not, they're not.
Yeah, and I will say, I think most of the students are listening, and I have a few classes where they're really engaged and participating and asking questions. Some classes like dead silence for 20 minutes, but some classes are really, the kids are definitely into it. I miss those kids. I mean, as much as we're making the education work, it sucks because I do like the kids and I don't see them like in a classroom setting and I get no energy. That's the thing. Like when you're a teacher, at least for me, I feel like I'm almost a comedian because I think comedians thrive off of energy. You read the classroom, you know how to adapt, and I'm the same way. And when I don't feel that energy, it makes teaching so much more difficult.
Yeah. Everybody's still alive. No COVID-19 in your house.
No. I mean, I don't, Caroline actually works. She works in Publix, 3 days a week, so she's surrounded by everyone. Yeah. So I would not be surprised if she has the antibodies for it because, most people are asymptomatic. Like I'd say probably 85% of the people who get it exhibit no symptoms. So I would not be surprised if Caroline has had it. And by extension, I would not be surprised if I've had it because, I mean, we're not doing any kind of social distancing in the house, obviously.
That's too bad about mom, huh?
Yeah, those things happen, though.
What would you do if I just was like, man, it'd be such a cool podcasting moment if I tell Jared that mom died on like would you ever forgive me? Hey Jared, seriously, I got something serious I want to tell you. Hey, are you recording? Hey man, Dad's trying to get in touch with you. Mom died.
And then you give me like edit notes. You put dramatic music here. All right. The ratings, baby.
Yeah. All right, well, let's jump into this. I have already told the listeners in the intro where they can find the beginning of this countdown, top 50 band countdown. So we are starting with number 30 today, and we're going to work our way all the way down to number 1. And this is something I would actually do this and not put it on podcast. I just, for some reason, it's kind of fun for our listeners who know that we're into music. And I'd be the same way if there were personalities or people that I like to listen to, like I want to know what they're listening to also, as far as music is concerned. So you and I would have these lists regardless. We would just do it for fun. So my number 30 is who I would call in the classic emo age, the golden age, late 90s, Rainer Maria, number 30.
Oh yeah. Love that band. Love them.
Yep. So let's just go back and forth. What's your 30?
Okay, so my number 30 is a band called Sun, followed by a 0, followed by like 3 parentheses. And I really started getting to them when I started listening to a lot of vinyl. They have, if you want to check them out, I would check out Black One. But they're basically a drone band. And so it's probably not going to be up most people's alley. But if
what is that? What's a drone band?
Drone is basically just long passages of guitar, like playing a note at a time, so it's super low, there's no percussion. What I like about Black One though is they basically recruit black metal vocalists to sing over the drone, so it's very dark, very black, very bleak, but I like it.
Yeah, sweet. My number 29 is Janelle Monáe. I know you don't care about all that R&B stuff, but her latest album that she dropped, I think a year or two ago, it just put her over the charts for me, for sure. Great releases that she has. She's on, I think she's on Pepsi commercials or something like that. But
really?
Yep.
I think the only time I've ever heard her was on the cameo she did for Fun. The band Fun.
Yep. Yeah, and it's interesting. I wonder how many bands or artists that I found out through Pitchfork's Top 50, because she's definitely an example. I don't know if I would have ever heard, well, probably through the Fun album, but I mean, I discovered her way early on because her first full length was in Pitchfork's Top 50. And I was like, well, I got to check this out.
Yeah. All right, well, my number 29 is another emo band, probably the OGs of the second wave, Sunny Day Real Estate.
Yeah.
So the Pink album, it's probably my favorite, but I definitely love their first 3. The fourth one, the Rising Tide, I never got really into, but I like it.
Yeah.
But Jeremy Innick is just an amazing lyricist, and I love his vocals.
Yeah, and I would lump Sunny Day in with his solo project also, or he has a few of them. Yeah. But definitely Return of the Frog Queen is a must.
Oh, I'm thinking, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, you mean like his solo Jeremy Innick stuff. I was thinking Fire at that, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the Return of the Frog Queen.
Yep. All right, so my 28 is a Southern hip-hopper, Big Crit. Went to his concert at Music Farm with Priscilla. It was absolutely wonderful. I don't know if I told you this story before, but we forgot how shows were. And so we were like, oh, it's a 9:00 show. Cool, we'll be home by 10:30. And so we're there. And we watch like 3 really lousy rap acts. And I was thinking to myself, gosh, I guess live hip hop just isn't that good. And then BJ, the Chicago kid, who's pretty big in the R&B world, he was the real deal non-local opening act for Big Crit, and I was like, okay, this is good. And dude, when Big Crit hit the stage, he had like the full band, he had like the big DJ in the back. It was just times 100 what we had just been through. I was like, aha, this is what we waited 3 hours for. It was nice. Unreal.
Now, is that your only, I hate using this word, but your only secular hip hop concert that you've ever been to?
Yeah, and I haven't been to many Christian ones at all either. I guess Cornerstone.
I thought at Cornerstone you may have seen like SFC or something.
I think maybe SFC, but that may be it.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a crazy local band. Oh no!
Wait, Sweets and Fresh?
Yeah,
I remember that.
So
that was at the mall, right?
No, well, I think we went to that was at a White Cross concert, and Sweets and Fresh was a local rap act, and they showed up to the concert expecting to open up, and our friend Dave Benson had to basically, I don't know what the disagreement was or the conflict, but he basically had to send them away, and it was like a really big conflict. It was funny. All right, you're 28.
All right, my 28 is your 29, Rainer Maria.
Dang, that's pretty close.
I love that band. I think every album they put out I've really been into. Even the new one that came out like 2 years ago I think was solid. But of course, their first 3 or 4 are just epic, iconic.
Do you have a favorite? So. My favorite's the second one. Is it called Look
Me Too.
Now, Look Again?
Yep, me too. For sure.
Yeah, my 27 is the legend Tupac. Enough said.
Ah, heck yeah. All right, my 27 is probably way higher up on your list, but Dinosaur Jr.
Yeah.
I would call him my 27. And I think my favorite album by him is Where You Been.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so late to the Dinosaur Jr. party, but I'm so glad that I arrived. I mean, it's just so
and you've
much
even
good
checked
stuff.
out his old stuff too, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Yeah, I've gone back to all the Dinosaur Jr. stuff. I've got playlists of the best songs, and that's awesome. I even like his solo stuff, honestly, as of recent. All right, so my number 26, I'm assuming, is probably going to be in your top 5 or top 10, but Mineral. Nice. And honestly, if it wasn't for their vinyl stuff, I probably wouldn't have them that high, if in the top 50 at all. I love Power of Failing. I'm not a huge fan of End and Serenading, but all of their vinyl stuff is some of my favorite songs from that era. Like, they're just unreal.
So when you say vinyl stuff, you're really referring to that 1/7-inch.
No, there's a few, man. There's a few, or maybe they came out on some compilations, but there's kind of a collection.
Well, yeah. So they do have. They had a split with I think Jimmy Eat World that was a cover of Psychedelic Furs, but also though on that Crank Records compilation, I think it's called Rubber Legs.
Yeah. Okay,
those 3 songs, so February, MD, and Rubber Legs were all recorded in between the 2 albums.
Okay.
And I agree with you. I think that is the peak of their powers.
It's unreal. Yeah. And honestly, their latest 2 songs are in my top 10 from last year, if you can consider it an album. I just love those 2 songs. For sure.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm glad they made it to your top 50. All right, my number 26, if I would have said this back in 1984, everyone that I knew would call me a sellout, but Green Day.
Yeah.
I mean, I freaking love Green Day. I think I like Green Day more in the past 5 years than I did back in the 90s. Because back in the 90s, I kind of did think they were too commercial, too whatever. But
we're too old to care about that stuff. If it sounds good,
exactly,
it sounds
right.
Good. Yeah.
And they are such great songwriters. Their first 4 albums is just pop punk perfection. So.
Do you remember how much angst our 20-year-old versions were when bands would like sell out? Like, it like hurt our feelings.
Yeah.
Like, it really bothered us. That's so
we were
funny,
betrayed.
man. It's so funny, man. All right, my 25 is Tammy Faye Baker.
Yes, sir.
That used to be your favorite. All joking aside, you used to jam to that for sure.
When I was like 5, maybe. Yeah.
25. I'm curious whether or not this makes your top 50, but Beach House. Beach House made it to they're my number 25. Yep.
Do you have a favorite album?
I do, but I'm not good at albums. So let me see which one is my favorite. It's Bloom is my favorite.
Bloom. I think mine's Depression Cherry, but I definitely like Bloom. I like Teen Dream too. So yeah. All right, my number 25 is one of the rare hip hop acts that make my top 50. What? Dr. Dre.
Nice.
Like for so long, I had The Chronic as probably my 3rd favorite hip hop album, but then I started listening to 2001. That album is so freaking ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that's actually surpassed for me. The Chronic is my number 3 all-time favorite hip hop album. And the Eminem, Snoop stuff on that is just ridiculous.
Yeah. So, have you checked out Compton? It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah, okay. I like it a lot. So my 24 is a very unique placement, and here's why. I have a playlist of about 20 songs from, they have tons of albums out, but every single album, there's like 3 gems, but there's some of my favorite songs, and I would actually give it to this band as writers of my absolute favorite song of all time, and that's The National. But it's so weird because there's none of their albums are like a Jimmy Eat World Clarity to me. Like Clarity I love from start to finish. National I don't. So I almost didn't have them on this list, but I was like, they wrote my favorite song, and then the theme, like the soundtracks to Warrior, one of my favorite movies, Win Win. I mean, they just unbelievable songwriting and just so moving. So National is my number 24.
Would you say High Violet would be that favorite album by them?
Yeah.
Or Boxer?
Yeah. Okay. I think it's called High Violet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my favorite for sure.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite.
That's the most consistent. That's the most consistent good album through. Yeah.
Yeah.
You said cool. Boxer would be yours?
I probably High Violet, but Boxer is like right there.
Gotcha.
So.
Gotcha.
All right, 24 for me is another 90s iconic and actually big band from the 90s, Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
And I think part of that appeal is because I that's one of my favorite albums or favorite bands to listen to when I work out. So just like Girl Talk was one of my favorite running bands, I would say Rage Against the Machine is one of my favorite workout bands. I just think their first two albums are just stone cold classics.
Yeah. It's crazy because there wasn't a whole lot of Rage Against the Machine ripoffs, or at least they didn't seem to really influence music as a whole, and I really think it's because they're untouchable. Who's going to try to do that kind of style? They totally did it. Bullseye.
Yep.
Like, are you going to really try to top that?
That's a good point. They did it so well that they really leave room for any competitors.
Yeah, yeah. All right, 23 is Sufjan Stevens, and that's highly due to his latest release. Sufjan is similar to The National, except I would say I like a higher percentage of songs on each album. But Carrie and Lowell, oh my gosh, that's just an unbelievable album. So number 23.
Yep. Nice. My 23 is a band that probably I should say this is kind of a guilty pleasure, but I cannot escape the fact that I listen to them all the time. And
Amy Grant.
It's one of my favorites. What?
Amy Grant.
No. Blink 182.
Oh, sweet.
So I probably lost all kind of credibility with my audience, but I mean, Dude Ranch, Cheshire Cats, the Take Off Your Pants, those albums are just awesome. And then even some of I like a lot of songs off their newer albums too, but I just love their pop punk, man.
So I'm curious as we go down this list if you're going to have some of that old school rugged punk, because we already got Green Day and Blink, so it'll be interesting. All right, my number 20.
Looking back though, I did just for the audience, I do have Minor Threat 35. So.
Yeah. All right, so my 22 is a rap act called Fourth Avenue Jones. I'll give you a cool little story. I was in contact back and forth. I was fanboying with MG the Visionary. He was a rapper on Tooth and Nail's little rap label, and I asked him, I said, hey, what's some other good Christian rap, because it's pretty hard to find, way harder to find back then. And he emailed me back and just said Fourth Avenue Jones, exclamation. So I was like, wow, I got to check this out. It took me such a long time to get the albums because it was like they were sold out. They had a crazy run-in with a major label that kind of offset things. But anyway, it is Ahmad Jones, and he's the guy that did the song Back in the Day When I Was Young, I'm Not a Kid Anymore, but somehow like it's the Back in the Day song. It's on a lot of movies. Classic, I think, mid-90s rap song or early 90s. And so he became a Christian, and so it's basically Christian lyrics, but bad ass stuff. And 3 solid hip-hop albums. Just really good stuff. Have you even heard me talk about them?
Oh, for sure. I remember when you were looking for them and when you found them. Yeah. Wasn't the first thing you found by them like an EP?
Yeah. It was actually it was like a promo of their release that was coming out. So it was just like it was, I think, one full song and then just snippets of the rest. But yeah, I had to special order. It was so weird how hard it was to track those albums down.
So for all you millennials out there, this is before streaming.
Yeah.
Where you actually had to hunt down records and CDs and stuff. Right?
Yep.
All right, so my number 22 is a band that is the pinnacle of post-rock, and that's Godspeed You, Black Emperor. So they have an album in my top 10 favorite albums of all time, but everything they do I love because I think because there's so much diversity in their instrumentation and their songwriting. Like Explosions in the Sky might be the most popular post-rock band in Mogwai, but I think the thing that makes Godspeed so special is that their 20-minute songs do so much. Yeah. It's not just constant build-up to a crescendo. No, it's more than that. It ebbs, it flows, but you also get those very tasty crescendos too.
Yeah.
So just amazing.
Sweet. 21, it's indie pop icons Belle and Sebastian. I tried Dear Catastrophe Waitress when it came out, and I think in 2004, and they've got so many albums that came. Like I call myself a big fan, but I haven't listened to all their albums. There's just so many. But yeah, great stuff.
Yep. Nice. All right, for me, number 21 is a very, very obscure black metal band, very avant-garde black metal band called Bosse de Neige, Bosse -DE-NAGE. Very not music that most people would like, but they're on the label called Flenser, which is one of my favorite labels right now. But if you like black metal and you want to try something a little bit different, definitely check them out.
Yeah. Yeah, sweet. All right, 20 is not a new band, but fairly new for me outside of a playlist that you sent me years ago, but really diving into a lot of Guided by Voices.
Ooh,
they've got that lo-fi indie sound along the lines of Dinosaur Jr. and yeah, phenomenal stuff. But he literally has like 20 albums with like 20 songs on it. So top 20 bands, and I probably have not heard most of it.
Right.
But the stuff I heard, they're really good.
Yeah, I would say that band probably has the most impenetrable discography because, like you said, there's like at least 20 albums out there.
Yeah.
So. All right, for me, number 20 is probably a band that a lot of our audience is familiar with, Me Without You.
Oh, yeah.
Seen them live a bunch of times. Catch for Us the Foxes is probably my top 20 favorite albums of all time. Oh Brother, Oh Sister, I Love. I mean, all their albums are great,
Yep.
but just a very consistent band, and their live performances are amazing.
Yeah,
So.
Sweet. My next one, number 19, is hip-hop Royce da 5'9", and man, his newest album, you gotta check it out. But phenomenal lyricist. I would say definitely one of the best. So
Do me a favor and share that album with me after this.
yeah,
check it out.
for sure.
Cool.
But you might dig some of his older stuff, honestly. But yeah, the news. I actually shared a song to you. It was because it used the Rocky theme song.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay, my number 19 is probably your number 1 or 2, but Pedro the Lion.
Oh wow.
So I'm a huge fan. It's really hard to pick my favorite Pedro the Lion album because there's like 3 contenders: Control, Hard to Find a Friend, and Achilles Heel. But just an amazing songwriter, and the musicianship is awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I was thinking a little higher up on your list, but yeah, awesome. And so you when you evaluate that's Pedro the Lion, Dave Bazan solo projects, and all of it, right?
No, just Pedro the Lion. I never really got into his solo stuff.
Really? Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, my 18 is nobody is super obscure punk band. Nobody will know who they are. MXPX is my number 18.
No one will know who they are.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
honestly, my favorite
Nice.
album is Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo. But man,
Yeah.
I mean, Polka Nacha, Teenage Politics, life in general, and I do even like some of their more recent stuff. But my gosh, it's just a classic band. And honestly, because I was so into Christian music, partly because I wasn't allowed to listen to anything else, that was my introduction to pop punk. And you know what's so funny is we used to listen to MXPX in front of people when Green Day was so huge. And everybody said, this is total ripoff of Green Day. And it was because they've only heard 2 pop punk bands, Green Day and MXPX. But I even thought that. I was like, man, maybe they did rip them off. But then you listen to pop punk and it's like, oh, no, that is nothing like Green Day.
Not only that, though, but MXPX, I think, were way, way faster than Green Day.
Yeah.
Their tempos were so much faster. So I never really saw the ripoff. But you're absolutely right. I mean, their only frame of reference is another pop punk band.
Right.
So, of course,
Right.
they're ripoffs. All right, my number 18 is a classic old school band in my life, one of the most influential bands of my high school years.
Let me guess. Mortal.
Mortal. Yeah.
Boom.
Absolutely. Love
That's
Mortal.
high up on your list, man.
Oh, you thought it would be like closer to the top 10 or something?
No. I'm surprised how high it was.
Oh,
actually.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, high school me would have them 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So, 30 years removed or whatever, they're still up there. Fathom, I could listen to right now, back to front to back. Same with Lucis. And even Wake was a classic album. So, yeah, lyrically, I would have to say that Gyro, I think he's the primary lyricist. He's probably my top 10 all-time lyricist.
Yeah.
From a Christian standpoint.
Yeah.
Like the way he can express his love for God and worship, to me, is just so non-cheesy and so very intelligent, and love it.
Yeah. Did you get into any Mortal stuff after Wake? Any Folds and
Mortal, that Pura album,
yeah,
that
was
ambient
good.
album, I love that album.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. It's on iTunes if people want to check it out. My number 17, this is where I lose all my credibility, is Fun.
Petra. Oh, Fun. Yes, sir.
Number 17, and it's all due to Some Nights. That album is just, I cannot get enough. So, yeah, it's interesting to have a band that far up on my list because of one album, but I just love that album so much they have to be in my top 20.
All right, so two questions for me.
And let me give a little background information. I just so happen to know someone who knows the Fun bass player, and interestingly enough, I think, and I don't even know the front. I don't know names or anything like that typically, but the front man, who I'm sure most of our listeners know who it is, it just seems like he was trying to crack into the commercial market. I have no idea if he was or not, but it seems like he was in a band called The Format. Then he put out a Fun album, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think he wanted to make a living out of his music, and he thought that a lot of people should hear it. Definitely, totally speculating, but what the big shift was with the album Some Nights is he went from a rock producer to an R&B producer, and that changed that band and almost like made it perfect, like just a perfect combination of some R&B synthesizing stuff with their rock sound, and I think that made all the difference. All right, bring your questions.
Well, okay, so I was just going to ask you, did you ever listen to Aim and Ignite, the album before that?
Yes, yeah, I like it.
Okay. I would say my daughters love Fun, but they actually like that album better than the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think I'm with you though. Out of the two albums, that's my personal favorite. Now, my second question: do you know what ever happened to them?
I actually heard him singing a song with someone at a store. I was like, oh, that's the guy from Fun. But yeah, I have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, my gosh, if I ever saw that they're coming out with a new album, I would seriously be so excited. Oh my gosh, I love that man. I just love his voice too. For any old school Christian listeners too, some of the stuff that he does with his voice reminds me of some weird stuff that Keith Green used to do with his voice.
Really?
Yeah, like how Keith Green would weird going up and down and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
He does have solid range, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. All
right. Number 17 for me is probably, I think it might be the last hip hop for me, and that's Run the Jewels / LP. Yeah. So I would say that LP is what pushes it over the edge. He's my favorite hip hop producer, but the combination with him and Killer Mike, phenomenal. I saw them live. It was a great hip hop. I've only been to 2 hip hop shows, Aesop Rock and Run the Jewels, but for me, just that synergy that they pull off as a duo is just pretty amazing.
Yeah. Sweet. All right, number 16. I'm curious as to, and I don't remember I'm sure neither one of us remember our 50 to 31 list. So if you already have this band in it, tell me. If not, then I'll wait to hear where they're at in your list, because I'm assuming they are. But Radiohead is my number 16.
Radiohead. Yeah, Radiohead's in my list.
Yeah.
Yep. But I haven't revealed it yet.
Yeah, number 16. And my favorite Radiohead album is definitely here we go again. I have to search for what it's called. It's the one. It's the one. Huh? Yes, In Rainbows. Yeah. And I just think there's almost no competition. It's just so that's dumb because Kid A and what's their third album that was
OK Computer is probably
OK Computer. Yeah.
Cool. Solid choice, man. My 16 is definitely a band that's going to be familiar to our audience. That's Zayo.
Yeah. Yep.
So just their longevity, their consistency, their live shows. Not to mention that Where Blood and Fire is probably in my top 15 albums of all time, and maybe one of my favorite metal albums of all time.
Yeah, so. Sweet. Yeah, they were my number 48. All right, so number 15, a little obscure here, definitely more indie. Was primarily known in the Christian market, but now he's just doing his own stuff. You need to track him down if you're into hip-hop, and that's Theory Has It. Love that guy. Yes. Love the stuff that he puts out. Love his lyrics. Just unbelievable stuff, and a lot of it, too. So,
I would say that out of all the obscure rap artists you sent my way, that might be my favorite.
Yeah.
Theory Has It.
So
this stuff is solid.
Yep.
All right, 15 is kind of a new school band. I've seen them live a bunch of times. Touche Amore. They put out hardcore punk.
Yep.
I guess more on the hardcore side of things, but just super incredible lyrics. I would even almost say almost like emo-esque lyrics, very heartfelt, very aggressive, but also positive, I think. I think he just kind of brings across that positivity. Even in dark places, you still find that positivity. So, yeah, fun band.
Yeah. Sweet. All right, another one-hit wonder, number 14. It's got to be Far Up because of Sin Disease, so that's Scattered Few. We've had the lead guy on this podcast to actually talk specifically about the album Sin Disease, and one of my all-time favorite albums, so they got to be high up on the list.
Would you say that's in your top 10 albums?
Oh, you'll find out. Oh, that's right. You won't find out. Yeah, a top 10 for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, nice. All right, where am I? So I'm at number 14. Number 14 is a Tooth and Nail band.
Oh, wow.
So this
Starflyer.
Tooth and Nail band is Luxury.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I don't know. Something about Luxury, just the beauty of Luxury. Amazing and Thank You is probably in my top 15 albums of all time, but all their albums are phenomenal. Just excellent songwriting. And I've only seen them live once, but it was also a very fun show, too.
Yeah,
so,
very cool. All right, we are definitely getting into, let's see, I've got 13 more, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Hip-hop.
7 hip-hops. All right, so my number 13 is A$AP Rocky.
Nice.
Yep, really good stuff. What's your 13?
My number 13 is Smashing Pumpkins.
Whoa!
They have my number one all-time favorite album, but outside of that, I mean, there's definitely a drop-off, but I still do like Gish, and I do like Melancholy. So, yeah, solid band. Finally got to see them live 2 years ago, so that was nice.
All right, somewhat of an obscure rap act, but he sure as hell is making a good living out of his music, and that's Odyssey. And I am looping him in with Diamond District, which is his rap band. What do you call, like, I mean, Beastie Boys, that's not a band. Is it a band? Like, don't you need instruments and stuff?
I would say rap collective, but
yeah. But Diamond District, The Streets Won't Let Me Chill is one of my favorite rap albums, and Odyssey has got some daggum good albums, so definitely makes that's I think we're on number 12, so yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, my number 12 was like your number 14 or 15, Scattered Few.
Yeah.
And I won't belabor it, like you said. I echo it. I think that Sin Disease is amazing. Jawbone and Ass I like too, so yeah, solid man.
Yeah. All right, my 11, nobody's heard of Outkast, but that's my 11, and I loop Big Boy into that as well because of his solo albums. I don't want to separate the two, so basically Outkast and Big Boy, my number 11.
Sweet. My number 11 is Old School in My Life, The Crucified.
Dang!
Yes, sir.
That's high up the list, man.
Yeah, because, I mean, first off, their first full length blew my 14-year-old brain.
Right.
And then going back to Pillars of Humanity, that is, to my opinion, one of the all-time greatest crossover thrash albums.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And Mark Solomon.
Yeah. Hope you are enjoying this as much as we are making this episode. I wanted to offer you guys a gift that if after listening to this episode you've heard us talk about any band that kind of strikes your fancy a little bit and you'd love for us to publicize a best of playlist, let us know. What you can do is you can tweet us. Our Twitter handle is PWNApod. And what you can do is tweet at us and say, playlist of fill in the blank of the band. You can even tag that band if you want, please. And then hashtag top 50 bands PWNA. I'll have that in the show notes for you. Little instructions on how to request a playlist. My brother and I are unfortunately only on Apple Music, so for those of you on Spotify, you're kind of out of luck. But you can find Jared Svendsen and Joey Svendsen on Apple Music. Feel free to tweet us if you'd like to have a best of sampler of some of these bands that we discuss on this episode. All right, back to our talk. Yeah, for sure. All right, my number 10, Kendrick Lamar, Say No More. How about your number 10?
Favorite album real quick, though? I'm
Damn.
just curious. Okay.
Yep.
I'd say the same thing. I'm not a
Yep.
huge fan, but Damn is my favorite album by him.
Yep.
Number 10 is an old school industrial band called Ministry. And again, Ministry blew my teenage mind. And 2 of their albums are in my probably top 50. So yeah.
I mean, that's so weird to think that maybe a lot of our listeners have never heard of Ministry. Like, maybe not.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, number 9 is Jimmy Eat World, and it is highly due to Static Prevails and Clarity. I also like Bleed American and the one that came out after that, but also very much so Jules is their material before Static Prevails that were on vinyls, and I basically have the MP3s. There's actually a collection album of their older stuff as well. But for sure, Clarity is one of my favorite albums of all time, and the bookends of that album are fantastic albums as well. So Jimmy Eat World.
Yep. Hats off to them too. Okay, number 9 is a band I'm sure no one's heard of. That's VNV Nation.
Really? You don't think many people have heard?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, they're European. You have to kind of be into the goth industrial scene. I call their music future pop, so it's very accessible industrial, so very dancey, very keyboard oriented, kind of fun music. Great live performance. I've seen him twice. So yeah.
Yeah, sweet. All right, my number 8. Once upon a time, there were 3 gang members who were pushing drugs. I would assume maybe killing people, but they basically had a spiritual encounter with God and became Christians. And very soon after, so we're talking some raw stuff, they came out with an album called Gang Affiliated, and their names, it's Gospel Gangsters. Now, I definitely think that's somewhat of a cheesy name, but here's what I think about that name is that was the perfect name when they started, because that's exactly what they were. It was gangster music, and they were Christians, and they were kind of the first ones on the scene to make a big wave. I kind of liken it to the old podcast that I was on, Bad Christian. It was like, because of that name, that really helped with exposure. And if we could look back and take that name away but still have the same exposure, we probably would, because it just got a little old, but without that name. So Gospel Gangsters, dude, I just was thumbing through all their albums, and there's just so much good stuff. Now, rumor has it, so Mr. Solo is one of my favorite lyricists. Rumor has it, and I couldn't find it online, so maybe it's not true, but I heard that he actually made a connection with Dr. Dre and Death Row Records at the time, but could not figure out a deal because of his Christian lyrics. But, I mean, you got to check out the album. I Can See Clearly Now, and if you like that, go to Gang Affiliated. If you like that, go to, I would say, The Exodus, but just some dynamic rap stuff, man. So that's my number 8, Gospel Gangsters.
If you ever made like a best of Gospel Gangsters, send it my way.
I got it.
Oh, send it my way.
Yep,
Share it to me. Sweet. Okay, my number 8 is a very obscure black metal band called Leviathan, and I just love his stuff. It's super dark, very creative. His vocals are just messed up and deranged. Fun stuff.
Yeah. Sweet. Yeah, honestly, for our listeners, I'll put that Gospel Gangsters playlist on Apple Music as well. All right, so my number 7 is a band that you mentioned early on, and that's Sunny Day Real Estate. How It Feels to Be Something On. Is that what it's called? How It Feels to Be Something On? Yeah. One of my favorite albums, and Pink album is unbelievable. Diary is unbelievable. I'm with you as far as what's the album called after
Rising Tide?
Yeah, Rising Tide. There's for me, there's like 4 or 5 really, really good songs, but yeah, Sunny Day Real Estate, Jeremy Innick, unbelievable stuff. Number 7.
Number 7 for me is another kind of old school punk band, Rancid.
Okay. I was expecting that on there. I just didn't know how high on the list it would be.
I guess for me, Out Come the Wolves back in 94, 95 was just mind-blowing because of their combination of ska and punk. It's the first time I really ever heard that. and they're very consistent. All their
Yeah.
albums are really good.
Yeah. Number 6 for me is The Roots, and they were very instrumental in getting me into kind of a more underground scene that I didn't even know existed. But my gosh, just album after album after album of unbelievable stuff. And man, do they have the life right now, being the live band on the. I mean, seriously, it's like well deserved, man. I mean, they basically paid their dues, and now that, I mean, gosh, what a cool gig for them.
And I think
to have.
that gig also really showcases the depth of their talents.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. So that's my number 6.
My number 6, MXPX.
What?
So
mainly because of life in general, would you say?
I would say mainly because the point in my life when I first discovered them, they were so huge back then. Life in general is in my top 5 albums of all time, and just I guess the nostalgia, and they are very consistent too. Like their last album that came out 2 years ago, I really liked. It was in my top 10. So.
Yeah, sweet. All right, my number 5. You're going to be shocked. This is my last hip hop. Well. So my top 4 is not hip hop. Number 5, and it was so crazy when I was looking at all the hip hop stuff that I like, and I was like, no way, this is my favorite rapper. And I was like, oh shit, I guess he is. But Kanye West is my favorite rapper. I mean, there's just so much good stuff, just song after song after song after song, album after album after album. He has revolutionized. I mean, nobody can argue how he has revolutionized hip hop maybe a couple of times. I mean, he is a pioneer for sure.
Favorite album?
My favorite album of Kanye West would probably be, gosh, it's so hard. I don't think too many people would say this, but Yeezus is definitely one of them, and maybe Graduation. Maybe Graduation.
Okay.
But it's just so hard because I like my Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, College Dropout. I mean, they're just all so good.
Yeah. I agree. I'm not a huge hip hop head, but definitely respect his game. Number 5 is Metallica.
Dang.
Which may shock you, but I just remember hearing that kind of metal when I was in 6th grade. There was no turning back. I mean, I would say that was my gateway drug into thrash, death metal, black metal, whatever. It all started there. And their first 4 albums, you just can't touch from a metal standpoint. So.
Yeah, sweet. You have a favorite, Justice for All?
Justice for All, yeah. That's probably my all-time favorite metal album, period.
Gotcha. All right, so my number 4 was my number 2 up until like a month ago. I started listening to all these top 10s, and I was listening to number 2 and 3, and I was like, I like them better than this artist. But number 4 is Frank Ocean.
Ooh.
Yep. Number 4.
Nice. Blonde or Channel Orange?
Blonde. One of my favorite albums, but I like them both, and I like the singles that he's putting out, and I like when he's on rap albums. Anytime I see his name on a rap song, I'm like, yep, listen to that.
Nice. All right, my number 4 has already been mentioned in this episode, and that's Radiohead.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
OK Computer is probably my favorite album by them, but I do like In Rainbow second.
Yeah. Oh, really? That's your second?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, my number 3, and I dove into their material recently, and I was like, there's no doubt they deserve this number 3 spot in my heart and my ears, and that's Jejune. This Afternoon's Malady, the Rest in Peace album, their vinyl stuff, even Junk, their first full length is just superb. And I do have a Jejune playlist on my Apple Music if anybody wants to check it out. Just blissful, thick guitars, just beautiful. I mean, you can't call it shoegaze, but maybe some elements of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No did they make your list? Did they make your top 50?
See, that was just getting ready to say, because this is a snapshot, and this was a snapshot from, I guess, 6 months ago. They did not.
Yeah.
If I redid it today, they definitely would. I mean, it would be low. It would be like in the 40s, but they should be there as of today.
Yeah. I almost wonder if they're one of the more obscure indie acts, because I can't tell, like, when you're listening to indie music, especially in the late 90s where internet wasn't huge, I just have no idea how the kind of exposure Jejune had. I mean, I just have no idea. I don't know if they were just like a blip on the indie radar where only some very fortunate listeners like you and I and a few thousand more, or did they open up for Jimmy Eat World and get a little bigger? But I would guess that they were pretty obscure.
I agree, and I think even a band like Mineral, who's now playing in front of 500 or 600 people, I think back in the day they were playing to 50 to 100 people. So I think that whole Midwest emo scene, with the exception of like Jimmy Eat World and Sunny Day Real Estate, was very small, very obscure.
Yeah. All right, your number 3.
My number 3 is Weezer.
Dang, yeah, they didn't even make my list.
Wow. So Pinkerton, the Blue album, but even the White album and the one that came before, I forgot what it was called. But just from the standpoint of the Blue album and Pinkerton, they're in my top 10 albums of all time. So there's no way I can leave them out. They're just an amazing band.
Yeah, heck yeah. My number 2, Dinosaur Jr. Number 2, baby. Yep, they have become like one of my favorite bands, and I feel so blessed, man, because there's so much stuff to listen to. It's like you find like one of your favorite bands, and it's like, oh, there's 8 new releases that I get to listen to.
Yeah.
Because I just really have not dug deep into it at all. But there's just something about that sound. It's definitely one of my favorite types of music, is that garage lo-fi sound. And I just feel like Dinosaur Jr. does it better than anybody. The lead guitar playing, all the way to Jay Mascis's voice, that kind of whiny. I don't know how to describe it, but just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Do you have a favorite album by them?
No, I don't. I don't really know. I think that I listen, like I've got a huge playlist of songs, like my favorite songs of all the different albums. And it's interesting because if I would have been following Dinosaur Jr. as they were putting albums out, I would probably have a favorite album. But I basically dove into Dinosaur Jr. listening to like 7 or 8 albums at a time. So it's almost like I don't know how to even.
So you probably just have like favorite songs, like you just like the songs.
Yeah, I mean there's a good 60 of them, but yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Nice, man. All right, so my number 2 is, you want to guess? Probably not.
I wish I could remember.
It's a new band. It's a new
band?
Yeah. But I talk about them all the time. They're in my top 10 every year and all that stuff. Metal.
My mind is so blank.
Deaf Heaven.
Oh, yeah. If I would have thought of them, I would have said it immediately and I would have known it.
Right. So. I would just encourage listeners, if you are kind of on the fence about metal or even black metal, just dive into them, because they do include incorporate a lot of shoegaze elements. There's a lot of beautiful, absolutely gorgeous passages. I guess I would start with Ordinary Corrupt Human Love, because I think that's their most mature songwriting, and those songs have the most beautiful passages. The most critically acclaimed is definitely Sunbather, but just a phenomenal band. I've seen them live a handful of times too, and they don't disappoint.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, my number 1, obviously you would guess it if you knew that I hadn't already mentioned Dave Bazan and Pedro the Lion. I feel like I have almost lived life with this guy as far as how much I listen to his stuff and how his thoughts and beliefs have changed in a way that makes me a little bit sad, because I still believe in God and Jesus. But Hard to Find a Friend was a critical album when I was going through some tough depressive times in college. Achilles Heel may still be my favorite album of all time. Nice. As of more recent, I love the album Strange Negotiations. So and I would say my least favorite music of Dave Bazan's repertoire is the very latest full length. What's it called?
Phoenix.
Yeah, I like it. But it's the first page of the Lion album where I said I like it. I mean, every single other album is like, oh my gosh, this stuff is just perfect,
That's saying a lot, though, because he's put out so much stuff.
Right.
So to have one album that you think is just kind of mediocre is amazing given his discography.
Right.
So.
Right.
I'm sure my number 1 is no mystery to anybody. Mineral. It's just it just begins and ends there. My favorite lyricist. 2 of his albums are in my top 10, 12. I don't know what it is, but just their live performance is by far my favorite live performances. Seen them live twice, and so I would say from like 1997 on, I've never looked back with them.
Yeah,
very special place in my heart for that band.
So here is a cool story, and I'm pretty sure this is how you heard of Mineral. I was at a Dear Ephesus concert, and there was this knucklehead that was definitely carrying himself in a way that was drawing a lot of attention to him. And so basically the lead singer of Dear Ephesus is kind of weird, kind of cheesy, but he's just like, does anybody out here listen to emo music? And so this kid who has already brought a lot of attention, he like raises his hand. He says, me, man, I listen to emo. And the guy from Dear Ephesus said, well, by far one of the greatest bands right now is Mineral. And that kid said, I love Mineral. And so they went back and forth. But it was funny because after they had that dialogue with this kid, he took the drama to an extra level. The Dear Ephesus would get to this emotional part, and he would literally sit down in a chair and put his hand over his face. It was hilarious. But I remember reaching out to you, telling you about Mineral, and it piqued your interest. And I think you got a hold of Power Failing before I did.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you told me that, because I was craving emo at that time, because, Roadside Monument, I knew them. I knew Sunny Day. You turned me on to Dear Ephesus, so I was just basically knowing that I love the genre, but I knew no bands in it. So the moment you name dropped them, I contacted Manifest Records, ordered it, and then I also pre-ordered In Serenading, and I remember when I went to pick it up, the guy that worked there, he was one of my buddies, he basically held it above his head and bowed and says, all hail Mineral. Because, I mean, we were just both, like, extreme fanboys.
Oh, so, that's awesome. Dude, when we talk about ordering albums, having to track it down and all that stuff, aren't you glad that we lived through that? Like, I'm so glad that I wasn't born the same time my kids were born, when music was just right there easily. I mean, you can pay $10 and you get any album anytime ever. I mean, it's unreal. And the fact that you and I had to make CD exchanges a couple of times a year, where I give you a bunch of CDs that I have that you want to listen to, and vice versa. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, it's just so I'm glad we went through that. All right, dude, this has been fun. Enjoyed your list.
Yeah, you too, man. Is there any way we can? Are you going to publish your list, or can you send me your list? Because I need to see it and read it and kind of do that. Kind of stuff. Okay,
absolutely.
Cool. All right.
Pastor with No Answers listening musicians, would you like your music to play right here behind me, where I'm talking right now, just for kicks? We'll kind of tell people who you are. Feel free to submit that music at PWNAcontact@gmail.com. Peace.